It's Thursday. It's 6 o'clock in the evening. That can only mean one thing. It's the wonderful world, the ABC of CBD, right here and exclusively on Men's Radio Station. I always say, of course, every week, and it's true, that I'm just a passenger. Hello, I'm Russ Kane. And the show really belongs to, but he won't take the training wheels off. And I don't know why he does it, but he just simply won't. The show actually is with Ollie Mammon. But before we do that, it's interesting. Whenever I go on a journey, I use Waze or some sort of sat nav because I never know where I'm going. But over the next few weeks, we're going on a special journey. It's Ollie's special journey. There's no sat nav. Not sure there's even a map, but he's going to tell you all about it. So without further ado, right over to Ollie Mammon.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very
everybody.
much. Fine.
Happy Thursday. Welcome to episode 57 of the ABC of CBD as we enter the Christmas season. I hope you guys are full of cheer and joy. If you're not, find some. Okay?
Oh, right, okay.
It's about that time of year where everyone's stocking up on that gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So, good luck. Myrrh is super hard to come by nowadays. Anyway, Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy Christmas season. Happy
We're not there yet.
Season.
It's only the beginning.
Happy Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah to anyone
Hanukkah,
celebrating Hanukkah, Festival of Lights. Great festival. But I just want to say, look, thank you to everyone who's joined us over the last 57 weeks. Last week, we had a beautiful little episode. We had 43 minutes of Russ, and then you had 17 minutes just of me. Russ decided to go on the Jeremy Kyle show, which was incredible. How was that?
How was it? It was absolutely horrible.
Was it actually? He's a nasty dude.
I'm not allowed to say because this is public broadcasting, but let's just say I won't be rushing back. I'll leave it at that. I'd never met him before. I think I know why.
Yeah, he's I've said to a few people, I really want to meet Jeremy Kyle, and they're like, "Why?" I was like, "I don't know. It seems interesting. Seems like a great guy."
Don't give it airtime because this is your show on our radio station. That's much more important.
Well, so basically, so last week we were left. I was kind of left without Russ and without a guest. So I literally had all the training wheels fall off, and I blew the bloody doors off. Do you know what I mean? So it was like it was one of those things. I'm rolling down the street in this cart, which was like rickety. But then we had 20 minutes. And basically, my last 20 minutes, I did this after I asked. First of all, end of last week, I asked Russ a question. If he was in need of medical cannabis now, would he try it? And Russ's answer was yes. Now, my little, I want to call it rant at the end of last week's episode was all about my journey going forward and what I'm planning on doing. And it was actually based on a conversation which we had with today's guest. It was almost like the final tipping point. So before I get carried away, let's play a quick word from our sponsor. Then I'm going to do the introduction, then the guest, and then carry on with the show. So sponsor and then show.
I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD. A product created by users for users. A product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
Boom.
Kablamo. So I actually had a very interesting phone call today from someone. I'm going to bring it up in a few weeks' time. But it was actually about the Tincture Club and about how good it is. Now, look, I love that product. I put my heart and soul into that product. I put my face on that product. However, in all honesty, there are so many different brands out there in the marketplace that people don't really know where to turn. I spoke to someone in quite a position of authority today who called me up to give me some information on the Tincture Club, and all I'm saying is it's very, very, very good. In the next few weeks, as and when the information becomes live, I will disseminate it down to you. But right now, it's just to let anyone know, if you want a great quality product on the marketplace, not from my words, not from my mouth, but from someone who just told me today how good my product actually is, buy the Tincture Club. You can trust it, you can rely on it, and you can, it is exactly what it says on the tin. So, I mean, if you guys fancy that, do it. If not, in a few weeks' time, when I give you this piece of information, you will jump at it. Anyway, so over the
even
next
I don't know, and I'm excited.
I'm not telling
now.
anyone. I want to get
I'm
everyone really
excited.
excited.
This is like a treat.
Oh, so excited! So basically, yeah, I'm in one of those moods today. I'm like really happy. It's Christmas. I know I've got my holiday coming up soon. I'm really happy. I'm just like,
I think it's the frankincense and myrrh that's got
the myrrh, the goddamn myrrh. I love that myrrh. Anyway, so myrrh is almost like one of those sounds, which is like if you had a sheep and a cow, that's the sound it would make, would be myrrh, right? It's that sound. Anyway,
yeah.
So
give up the day job.
Over the next 4 weeks, I am going to be getting myself a medical cannabis prescription. Now, about 7 weeks ago, we had Tim Henley on the show, who is also going to be our guest again today. Now, Tim made a very beautiful point when he was on the show about why would anyone want to be a criminal when you don't have to be? Why would anyone want to be labeled as a deviant when you don't have to be? And it kind of resonated with me. Now, don't get me wrong, I've been discussing the idea of getting a medical cannabis prescription for a very long time, but I feel like Tim has just kind of pushed me over the edge. Now, at the end of last week's episode, I gave, like I said, this little rant about joining the system and making the system better, and about power of numbers, and about patients uniting in order to create a better system for the future. Now it's about data, and it's about us as patients almost nurturing the system so the system becomes better for patients. Now that was kind of like a summary of my rant. However, it's got my brain thinking. And I know Tim thinks very similarly. He's been an actual patient for a while now. He was one of the first few hundred who actually signed on. But there is this idea that as people, we actually do have a lot of power. And, you know, like when I started in the CBD industry, products weren't made properly. Then what happens is customers start demanding that products are made properly. So what happens is manufacturers start to do things properly. The same thing will happen with the medical cannabis industry. Right now, there are a lot of complaints about it because there aren't enough patients. The same way that if there were only 1,500 cancer sufferers in the UK, chemo would not exist. We would not get that therapy. It's too expensive to supply to a minor amount of the population. That's why the epileptic kids are not getting the medical cannabis on the system, because there aren't enough of them. So it's all a numbers game. It's all a data game. And it's all about how many people we can help. And if we can, then we throw a hell of a lot of money at it.
Can I jump in here? I'm going to jump in and support you. Tomorrow night, I have to. I'm going to an event, and I never go to events. I try and avoid them, especially at the moment, like the plague. But my closest friend has a family member with a horrible thing called Rett syndrome. Trust me, you don't want it. It only affects little girls. And because here's the irony, Ollie, and this is really in support of what you've just been saying, and I just want to sort of underline what Ollie's saying to everybody. And it's this: Rett syndrome, they could cure it if they had enough money. It's one of those things they actually could sort it. There's not enough people who have it, little children, for it to be a major campaign. Does that make any sense? Yet I've seen the devastation, as we have done in past weeks on the show with children with epilepsy, and that it's done to one family, and it's heartbreaking, and it's one of those dreadful, as Ollie's underlying, catch-22 situations, isn't it? Where because there's not enough people, there's not enough money thrown at it to
not
resolve
enough
the
people,
issue.
not enough data, not enough decision-making, what's it called? Decision-making research papers and stuff like that to encourage the thought. And it's just like David Baddock said. He said it, and he said it, he's CEO of Project 21. And he said, he goes, unfortunately, data makes change happen. NICE will only work based on data. They will only make changes based on data. And they need the proof of the numbers. So that's why I'm joining this system, to hopefully add to this data. Now, let's bring on Tim.
Are you doing it? I've got to ask, because I'm really intrigued. And then we're going to obviously bring Tim on, who's being very, very patient. But are you doing it to prove a point, or are you doing it because you also need it and want it?
So yes, I need it. Yes, I want it. In all honesty, I have no shortage of cannabis-based products around me.
Precisely, it's your business, isn't it?
I mean, so I have no shortage of it. However, the issue is I am an educated person. I believe I could help my doctor understand people like me more. I believe I can help them understand cannabis more. Now, that doctor's never going to learn from me if I don't get myself in front of that doctor. She's not going to come to one of my seminars. He's not going to come to one of my seminars. They're not going to come and spend a day with Ollie Mammon learning about cannabis. So unless I could get myself in front of them and start almost educating from the bottom up and explaining to this doctor what I actually need as a patient and what these cannabinoids actually do to me, what terpene profiles actually do, and the doctor doesn't write it down and put it into the system, it's never going to be there. Now, as patients, all of us know, we know what we need, we know what we want. However, we know
what we want, but I take issue. Then we must bring Tim on, otherwise he's going to be freezing to death out there.
Yeah, that's the poor guy's been waiting for 15 minutes.
He's shivering out there like Sherpa tensing
in the cold. And there's no tea and coffee.
Notes.
We've slapped
Here's
on
the
beverages.
Thing. When we go to a doctor's, we know we don't feel well. Obviously, that's why we're there. We know what we want. We want to feel, but we don't know what we need.
So I want Tim to come on now, okay, if possible, and then I'm going to answer your question.
Let's bring Tim on. Here he is.
I'm so sorry for making you wait. I do.
Oh, no worries. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. Oh, my camera's going funny.
So
no, it's fine. Tim, it's fine. Don't worry. It's good.
Before I respond to Russ's comment, do you have anything to say to Russ's comment?
No, I've got some to say to yours, though, some really important ones that actually go right to the heart of the matter. So let's just
hold on. Let me just answer Russ then with my opinion, and then you can kind of rebuttal me, and we can kind of go around in a little triangle and have a bit of banter. So when it comes to cannabis, doctors are not educated. Okay, correct. Unfortunately, they don't know. They just don't know like the difference between what strains do, what percentages of cannabinoids do, and generally what cannabinoids do full stop. They're not educated. As patients, most of us, especially us, hiding in the dark, we use cannabis, but we're not legal patients, and therefore we have to keep it secret. Patients have been using cannabis for a very long time, most of us. And most of us are not fresh on the block, been trying it for a week, and we're advocates. Most of us, it's been involved in our lives for over a decade. Now, if it's been involved in our lives for over a decade, we have an interaction with it and we have a understanding of it that our doctors unfortunately won't have because they've been involved for a couple of years. So we have, 90%, 80 to 90% more experience of understanding ourselves and our own journeys, which means the doctors should take into account our opinions when it comes to what cannabis medicines are right or wrong for us. So like I said to Tim everyone can disagree with me. It's completely cool, but it's just my opinion. All right. This is my opinion. It's not a fact. It's just what I really do believe.
It's opinion. You made that clear. It's okay.
So like when I look at a strain, I will know instantaneously whether or not that strain is right or wrong for me based on the look, the smell, the terpene profile, and generally what I see and feel from it. Do you understand what I mean? Like I will know if that strain for me, and if I don't, within 30 seconds of smoking it, I will know if that strain is beneficial or negative to my general well-being. Now, when I go and see my doctor, fingers crossed, I will be able to turn around to him or her and say, I believe I need this cannabis product for this reason, based on my experience of using cannabis products similar to this for similar reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sure. Tim, rip me to shreds if you want. Go ahead. I'll shut up.
No, not at all. I think what we have to do, though, is we're going back to Christmas and Hanukkah and all of these important holiday seasons. We have BC, we have PC. BC before cannabis, 1st of November 2018, illegal. So what is the point of making that statement? We have patients coming to us who have documented on their summary of care what is termed cannabis abuse, substance abuse. Now, this is one of the red markers, the red flags that consultants now will look at and go, oh, is this person going to abuse cannabis? But what these patients actually did were honest and open, like Ollie was advocating and saying, look, I'm using cannabis for medical purposes. And their doctors have noted that down as, oh, that's really bad. That's toxic. And we can't be doing that. PC, Post-cannabis, where cannabis has become legal and medical access is available, that now has some detriment that you have to overcome, and you have to navigate these systems. We are talking about tick box exercises. One, we have to validate that somebody is approaching cannabis with the right point of view medically. Recreational cannabis is not going to be here. We'll talk about Germany later, I'm sure, because Germany is moving past medical cannabis into adult use cannabis. We are still in the earliest stages of medical cannabis. And if you are honest with your doctor, BC, you may have an issue. So these things are really important to note. And I think that moving forward, the number of consultants, now remembering, as we talked about last time I was on, you have to be a General Medical Council registered consultant, the highest doctor level there is really. GPs can't prescribe. However, now this is a really important point. I'm probably going to say this at least 2 or 3 times. 10th of December, there is a private members bill in Parliament that is about medical cannabis. You need to talk to your MP, email your MP and say, I want you to back the change in medical cannabis. Now, it is only the second reading, which means it is just a kind of concept at the moment. The details are not set until it gets to committee. It's private members bill. Highly likely it won't reach law unless government adopt it, but it is an indicator of change. And these things are really important for the way medical cannabis develops in this country.
What are they trying to say in this bill? I mean, in very broad brushstrokes.
So, again, there is no detail around this bill. So it is conceptually, and it talks about ease of access, easing the process of accessing medical cannabis. Currently, it is an option of last resort. You have to have tried all those pharmaceutical. I'm so sorry, Russ, to hear of your friend's family where there isn't a treatment for the young lady. But that again comes back to this whole kind of point about the pharmaceutical industry where it is profit driven.
Well, no. I must just underline that, because otherwise that wouldn't be fair. There are treatments, but they haven't got a cure. But if they had enough funding, hence having gala dinners, etc., they can actually, they know what the cure would be. They do not have sufficient funding to effect that cure.
Doesn't that go to the heart of the matter?
So can I say one thing, Russ? So basically what I'm getting from that is, at this moment of time, there are 8 or 10 ailments which you can apply for in order to get medical cannabis. There are only 8 or 10. Now, bear in mind that a few years ago, there was 6. So now there's 10, it's increased. And over the next few months, hopefully it increases again and increases again. They're looking to give it for end of life. They're looking to give it for other like nerve issues and stuff, which is not currently there. They're looking to expand out on who can obtain it. Now, that's all being done because of the data and the research, because what happens is someone who has a bad back will take medical cannabis and they'll go and speak to their doctor, but actually the medical cannabis you gave me hasn't actually helped my back. However, I have been sleeping really well. So what happens is they write on the data that medical cannabis patient has no success from pain, however, does help a lot with sleep. So then what happens is that data then means that, you know what, actually, maybe we can offer this to insomniacs. Maybe we can offer this to other things. Then it goes on to the insomniac. You give the insomniac this. And they're like, you know what, actually, it's not actually helping me with my sleep, but actually it's helping me with my general joie de vivre. I don't want to kill myself anymore. Okay, so then what happens?
So let's just call it depression.
Yeah, let's call it what
it
PTSD,
is, or
like whatever it is. Yeah. But generally, they see it adds to that. So then what happens is that's a whole new area which doctors could potentially look at. Why? Because the data is saying you should look at this. Now, this constant conversation opens more and more doors. Why? Because as patients, we're asked to discuss with our doctors, especially systems like Project 21. They encourage you. If anything, it's part of the system. It's all about giving the data. They encourage you to speak to your doctors and basically tell them everything. Why? Because they're trying to create this textbook, which then they can build out more from.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. So, Tim, when Ollie goes to see are you going to see your GP, right? I
Yeah,
want to get this
so
right.
actually, no, I'm not going to see my GP. What I'm going to
Okay.
do is I'm doing it. So I know who I'm doing it through. Okay. I know I'm doing it through. Why I basically wanted to bring on Tim is because of the whole Access Canna company that he's got and this whole helping people to navigate this marketplace. I thought we could have a little conversation about what I'm about to expect. That's what I thought this conversation could be today.
No, good. But
I'm
what I
gonna
want
be
to do, I
doing
want
it-
to walk through it. I want to walk through it slowly and carefully, you know, with me.
Well,
just
you're going to
being
see the whole thing. It's
everyman.
going to be done on the show. So
I get
the whole
that.
thing is
I
going to
get
be
that.
live. It's going to be great because I literally showed my life to the world. It's incredible. And on the last day,
Are
I'm
we
going to
ready
smoke a
for
joint
that,
in front of
gang? Are
everyone,
we
or
ready
do
for
a
that?
vape, or whatever I'm allowed to do. Maybe take some oils. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm
Yeah.
going to do on the
No, I
last
get
day.
it.
Why?
I get
Because
it.
I'll be legally allowed to, and no one can say anything, which is great.
So,
So,
Ollie, before we bring Tim in, I'm just curious. You're going to sit down with the person you're going to sit down with. This man.
I've spoken to my GP.
All right.
I've already spoken to the Lifey group, and I've spoken to Project 21. So I'm going to be doing it in conjunction with both of them. All right. So I'll be representing the charity and the private side. I'm not looking to pick any sides there. I just want to show that there are options across the system. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it works. I've never done this before, so I don't.
No, I get that.
know
Now, what I
I'm
want to ask, and then Tim, you're being very patient today. It looks freezing where you are. I hope it's not as cold as it looks. It looks like you're in a tent somewhere on Bodmin Moor.
Pretty much.
It's like I expect,
He's getting ready for
I expect
winter
wolves
solstice
or
in a few
bears
days'
to
time.
put
He's
their
in
head
Glastonbury.
through. What is it? So
he's in Glastonbury. He's getting ready for winter
he's ready.
solstice.
He's ready for the festival for 2022. Wanted a good spot by the pyramid stage, right? So Ollie, presume I'm going to ask Tim because he's our guest. And he's taken the time out. When Ollie sits down with, let's just call it the doctor, just to cut things, use it as a shortcut. They will say, well, you know, Mr. Mammon, what seems to be the problem? I mean, they say, what be the problem? How does this then work? And how do you fall within the category they're going to say, oh, yeah, that's okay?
Can I correct a few things?
Yes.
So,
that's why you're here. Yes, please.
Yeah, okay.
Please.
Excellent. So, basically, all of the responsibility rests with the consultant who issues the prescription. So, in the UK, there is no restriction on getting cannabis. There is just finding the right consultant who will sign off on you. So, for instance, we have a patient who is looking to use cannabis because of macular degeneration. Finding an ophthalmic surgeon who is a registered specialist is nigh on impossible. Can't be done. So you cannot get it. If we could find one who was in favor of cannabis, we could get the person a prescription. So that's the first thing. Any ailment is available. We just need to find the consultant. That's what we do. That's what Access Canada do. So to go through the process, Ollie's already gone through his process. You don't actually need to speak to your GP, first of all. If you've decided that you want to try cannabis, and I'll use my case as an example.
Okay.
And I could vaporize cannabis in front of you and be completely legal because I am.
Do it.
Maybe towards the end of the program. We'll see. So the deal here is that effectively, once you start this process, you as a patient, the part of it is about your desire to try and use cannabis. If you've never used it before, remembering the only real way to do it is through private medicine, the private clinics at the moment. The NHS, NICE, National Institute of Care Excellence, have not actually authorized it for the NHS, apart from in certain conditions, which is where Ollie came back with his kind of specific conditions. The private sector is not kind of curtailed by those conditions. So effectively, the process at the moment is that you need to get a documented history of your medical issues that you've had, the conditions you're going to do. So in my case, back pain. So I decided I was on naproxen, I was on cocodamol, I was on omeprazole. I said to my GP, can I get medical cannabis? They said, no, only for epileptic children. I knew that was incorrect. That's why we formed Access Canada and moved forward, because we didn't want people to get the wrong information. So effectively...
And I'm just going to leap in, Tim, because if everyone's watching all over the world, and
I'm out of sync.
It's great. And what I'm saying, no. What I'm saying is, if you're not familiar with the drugs the pharmaceuticals that Tim's just talked about, they're pretty heavy duty stuff. I've had to, when my back goes, etc., I've had to be on some of that stuff. You don't want to be in it for long. I mean, you really don't. I'll just say that. So I'm just A, supporting you, but B, trying to shine a little light. It's not like taking a couple of Disprin, you know. It's much heavier than that.
Life-changing pharmaceutical drugs.
Well, they destroy your stomach, effectively.
Yeah,
yes, you have to take gastro. I had to go on it recently, and of course you have to take stuff to counteract the effects of that stuff. But anyway, there we are. Don't want to too much.
At that point, you then create your evidence bundle. So I created my evidence bundle. Now we've simplified all of this. If you go to the Access Canada website, there is an initial assessment button. You can click on that. That starts the process. We gather all the information that we need to build a case for you to get medical cannabis. One of the interesting things is the system we use has an algorithm in it that is generated in data from North America that actually recommends a cannabinoid ratio to you. THC, CBD, for your particular condition. Now, that's
based on other data, right?
Based upon data from the North American kind of environment.
All about that data. It's all about
absolutely. Data's king. Data's absolutely king.
Yep. Especially for our system. Do you know what I mean? Our system, this medicinal system, which is designed around rules, data is king. It really is.
So Tim, sorry, just talk about that data pool for a second, because I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands of patients that the data is being collated from, or
the North Americans are at hundreds of thousands. So Canada had 300,000 medical patients. So and this is based upon clinics that use this system. It pools its data together.
I think California has something like 20 million medical patients or something ridiculous like that. Something ridiculous. It's like ridiculous numbers. Like ridiculous numbers. No, it is ridiculously high.
Depends where you put medical.
I think there's 100 million people in California, right?
No, not that many.
No.
How many people in California?
45 million.
So maybe it's 20%. Maybe it's 20% of the population. Something ridiculous like it's an insane number, like insane. And you're like, really? It's like ridiculous. Like actually, like don't quote me on it, but it is something ridiculous. I just don't know the facts.
It's an interesting point because one of the companies we work with is Holistic Caring that come out of San Diego, and the training materials that they generate are based upon their bundle. This is really important, and because what they're starting to see in California, where they have no controls over high THC levels, so they get products that are 90% THC. They've gone fully recreational. They've gone to the stratosphere, and this is really important for people that maybe are using cannabis illicitly and potentially abusing it. We can help you too, because we can kind of guide you back to a better place, because cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, that's real. That's happening in California. It's happening in Colorado.
What is that? It sounds fancy. I have no idea what it is.
Your endocannabinoid system becomes oversaturated with cannabinoids. If you're using high-strength THC, you're starting to get into these areas. And people here will say, oh, no, look, this is wrong. It doesn't exist. It does exist. It's happening in legal states where they've already made that transition. But it's all about this education process. It's like legalizing alcohol now. Everybody has gone mad. If alcohol was illegal now and it was legalized tomorrow, everybody would go down the pub and drink absinthe. It'd be carnage. That is kind of what's gone on in California. Everybody's going to, it will go up and it will come down and it will be more responsible. We aim to provide you with responsible information about how to use cannabis to the most effective benefit health gains. And it's really important these things are kind of discussed and documented. Cannabis is very powerful, but it has a side that you have to understand and you have to be aware of.
But there's no ingredient on the planet which can't be abused.
Oh, absolutely.
It's very important. I throw that out there because it's
cannabis won't kill you.
No,
that's important.
Like you can drown yourself in a cup of water if you really want. Do you know what I mean? Like everything can kill you if it's not used properly. In fact, the matter is over subscription to any compound can cause you harm. It really can. That's just normal. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely.
But you don't naturally drink gallons of water all at the one go. Whereas you can, with high strength THC, overdo things, and that creates these issues. So it's understanding these processes.
I get that.
Coming back to the medical side,
That's it. The journey.
Absolutely. So once you've uploaded your data, we can then analyze it. And so by analyzing it, there are some red flags. Does your family have a history of schizophrenia? Does your family have a history of psychosis? Those are the two main ones, because the UK government, and I think the evidence is reasonably. Oh, hello, Gloria's from California.
Yes, she is from Santa Monica. I hope you're having better weather than we are, Glo, because it's blooming freezing here.
We got 3 degrees.
Yeah, Sheila Ferguson, as I told her
cold.
yesterday.
Oh God.
So basically.
Oh, and from California, we dash across to Seattle.
Hey, buddy.
There you go.
Mr. Wimple.
Hey, that's fantastic. David Wimble in Seattle.
I love the Americans.
Well, David's about as English as you can get, but he's in Seattle on Men's Radio Business. Can't say more. There we go.
Anyway, coming back to the journey. So once you've got that data, we then look at it, see which clinician or clinic is going to be best suited for what you're trying to achieve. There are differences. Can I give you a couple of examples?
No, please do, because I think that's so helpful.
Coming back to this, your GP, and some GPs, I never told my GP I ever used cannabis before I was a legal patient. And to be honest, I did. Occasionally I get hold of it and I used it illicitly. I never mentioned it. If I'd have been honest and told them, that could have gone on my medical records. That could count against me. Some clinics won't go near anybody who has that on their record. Other clinics will, other clinicians will, because they see BC, that it was a toxic thing. They see PC, post-cannabis, that actually, that's not a bad thing. It was just illegal then, and people put it on their records. Now it's legal. It's an access thing. Can I get access to it? Was that necessarily an impediment? Now, substance abuse, where you've overused it and gone, that's another kind of red flag, and we have to navigate these things carefully. So it's all about trying to get people the prescription they're looking for and get them the kind of the help that they need. And I think these are
a little bit worried, Tim. You've got me a little bit worried, because I've always been very open with my GP about my cannabinoid consumption. However, my GP's never really been verbally against it. I'm one of these guys. I'm like, look, doc, I'm in your hands. If you really believe deep down in your heart and soul that I shouldn't be doing this, just tell me. We'll talk about it. I'm not one of these guys, my way or the highway. You've got to take care of me the way I say. I'm very open and honest. If you really believe that this is destroying me and destroying my brain and my body, tell me. And he's never once said to me that I think this is causing you negative effects. I personally think you should not be doing this. He's never said that to me. So I don't know.
And just for clarification, Ollie, just for clarification for everybody, and I know we've been doing this 56, 57 weeks now, but for people who are maybe joining only in the past few weeks, why, if you don't mind discussing it, why are you going?
So I have Tourette syndrome, okay? I have Tourette syndrome. Don't know if you know about Tourette syndrome. It's like a cluster of different issues. So you have an ADHD, you have some form of physical, verbal spasm or a word fixation, and you have obsessive compulsive disorder. So that's basically what I live with every day. I just get super excited at the smallest things and then obsess over them for days. And it could be a bit of a burden. Now, don't get me wrong, like I dose myself up with large amounts of CBD in the day. I take a broad spectrum CBD extract every day. I take about 100, 150 milligrams. And I also use about, I do consume cannabis. I find it's the only thing that turns me off. Okay. And if you
what would happen, and I've never asked you this, but I'm doing this because I think we're in a safe space and I trust Tim. What would happen if we did this show, God forbid, and you hadn't taken all of this stuff? What version of Oliver Mammon would I be dealing with on a weekly basis? Seriously.
I reckon I would be a lot more angry. Okay, so like I find on days where I don't take my CBD, I'm a lot more angry. I'm not an actual anger, but what happens is there's so much going on up here. I have no time for what's going on out here. That's the first thing. I get
so you're not
short.
specifically angry at anything. It's
No,
just
not angry at
very
anything,
interesting
just
to try
very
and understand what it's
frustrated,
about.
very frustrated, very short. So, for example, no one knows this, but I'm telling you, so it takes me about 35 minutes to leave the house in the morning. I have to check the stove about 25 times before I leave. I check the door is locked about 15 times before I leave. And I call the alarm company 3 times every single day to make sure the alarm is on. That happens in my life every single day. And most people, when they see it, they look at me and they go, "Are you being fucking serious?" That is my life. All right. So the OCD is kind of what's the worst for me. It's the only thing I can't really seem to get the hand on. The ADHD is like my superpower because it means I could accomplish anything. I really I know it's like attention deficit disorder, but the hyperactivity, it kind of keeps me very grounded, and I find it gives me an energy to survive. The physical and verbal spasming and the twitches only come out in moments of stress. So when I've got severe amounts of stress, I can feel myself starting to twitch, and I really don't like it.
So but 57 weeks, and I don't want to see it any more than I want to see someone have a fit or something to prove their point. I don't want to see that either. But we've been lucky, and you're saying that it's let's call it the medicine that you take. Let's just give it a generic term. The medicine that you take, which is keeping me from seeing you, swearing your head off and getting angry, and because you haven't in 57
No, I
weeks.
haven't. But then also you've got to realize that this is my house. Do you understand? This is my platform. Now, if you understand what I mean, it's my show. So if I don't bring guests on who run me up the wrong way. I don't engage with conversations when they're negative. Do you know what I mean? I just won't do it. And if I was to have a guest come on and do it, I reckon you would all get a show.
Well, we get a show every week. But, what would happen if you did? Tim, what do you think would happen?
Well, I have no filter. So, I mean, they would probably get a lashing, and I wouldn't be able to control myself.
David Wimbledon's watching this from Seattle, thinking if we're going to put it on Deluxe Radio, and David's thinking, Russ, are you completely mad having this guy? It's exciting. It's like Russian roulette. I don't care.
But then on the other side is, look, I'm 33 years old. I've had Tourette syndrome since I was 7. So over the last 27 years, I'm nearly 34. That's why I said 27. Over the last 26 years, I have nurtured my ailment to the point where I have a small ability to have control over it. However, I really do believe that if you remove cannabis from my life, as in you removed my broad spectrum extract in the morning and you removed my release in the evening, I wouldn't want to be in here. I don't think I would want to be in there. I think it would bring me back to where I was.
You've never said that before, and that's very open of you. And thank you.
I'm always very open.
It's just important because I tell you why I was drilling down there. I think Tim will get
very
this,
important
because I'm looking at this from the outside, and what I didn't want people to go away saying, "Oh, it's just the bloke who just wants to not be banged up or whatever, or be." Have legal problems, wanting some cannabis. Now, to give the background is important. You see what I'm saying?
If you could remove my Tourette syndrome from my bloodstream, from my genetics, or give me cannabis, I would choose the removal of the Tourette syndrome every single day. So if I would actually do that. If you could take away my Tourette syndrome, I would very happily stop smoking cannabis.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
As in, I don't don't get me wrong. I enjoy it. Tastes lovely, but I don't smoke during the day because I do like the way my brain works, but then it does get a bit too much. Do you know what I mean? It's about finding that balance at the end of the day. It's a bit strange because it's without cannabinoids, it would be a completely different picture, like a really big, completely different picture. I really enjoy CBD because as soon as CBD came into my life, I stopped consuming so much high THC cannabis because I found that I had my relief without having to smoke a high THC strain. But I see the benefit of all different cannabinoids, and I really do know that my routine of CBD in the morning, small dosing over the course of the day, and my THC at night, it gives me a ability to be this, and I like this. I like what I am. Do you know what I mean? Like this.
And you're also very successful. Let's not forget.
I am quite successful, which is quite, and also I'm charming, and I have friends like
and modest.
Tim.
Obviously, if you take cannabis, it makes you very modest.
No, but I have friends like Tim
you have to
well,
grow a ponytail, apparently.
It means I can feel. Sorry, carry on. Do your thing.
Let's just look. We've gone to Santa Monica in California. We're over in Seattle, where the coffee comes from. Let's dash across to Edinburgh. And Veronica says, it helps me have a quality of sleep, reducing my pain's daily level, controls my anxiety, allowing less fiery vision of me, plus so much more. And this is wonderful. You read
understand the
something
fire
like
then, Veronica. She understands that. It's that sort of like, almost like grinds my teeth. I'm a little bit charged without it. I had to have that little bit. Go on, Tim.
No, I think there's some really interesting and valuable points here. But I want to pick up on Ross, and I want to actually say one of the really important things here is that it's been about 100 years that cannabis has been ostracized and fake news has been around about cannabis. Mm-hmm. Before then, it was completely accepted as a medicine and has for centuries been a medicine.
Queen Victoria used it for her menopause and menstrual cramps.
Now, the situation is, you raise this point about being legal. And so many people use it. I mean, we're upwards of probably 1.5 million people using cannabis as a medicine. Now, they may not be getting prescriptions, but they are using it to control the very symptoms that Ollie, and all the other people that have been using it. And that can range from all kinds of things, because it's all about the endocannabinoid system, the engine management system of your body. Cannabis is multiphasic. It just doesn't do one thing. It operates across a spectrum. Cannabis is a spectrum. It's not one thing. It is a complete opportunity of possibility. And this is what the pharmaceutical industry really don't get. And I just must come back to that situation with your friend's daughter. You said there is a cure. Okay, there's a cure. If we wanted to do it, we could spend the money, we could do it. But actually, it makes the pharmaceutical companies more money to keep it, so there is a treatment and you don't actually fix the problem. And that is the problem of where our society is today. We are faced with a kind of change in the whole lifestyle that we have to live because of climate change, created by the Industrial Revolution that started about 100 years ago. These things follow a graph. Now, cannabis can start to reduce all of those things if we adopt it and accept it and actually deliver on the science, the promise of the science. Boris keeps telling us we are a science powerhouse, yet Israel is world leader in cannabis research. The UK could pick that baton up and run with it with the proper regulation. I come back to the private members bill. I also raise it with the all parliamentary group on CBD that has been formed. Now, one of the really important things that Oliver hasn't mentioned is that technically CBD in this country, CBD flower in this country is illegal. Yet there is academic research from Italy that says it reduces pharmaceutical use across the board and alleviates people's anxiety. What are we coming out of post-COVID? We have long COVID. What are one of the trials that are being run? It's a drug science trial that is just being set up that is going to look at cannabis to alleviate the symptoms of long COVID, because long COVID is a spectrum of symptoms. So we have this picture. Spectrum, we have a whole opportunity where a lot of diseases, a lot of conditions can be alleviated by cannabis. I think these are really important points. I would also, and this is by far the most important point I will make tonight, that actually, if you don't have a medical cannabis prescription and you drive and you are drug tested coming up to Christmas, you have the potential to lose your entire livelihood.
And this is exactly what Guy Coxall brought up on the show a few weeks ago, and about the idea of a medical defense. And you have a medical defense if you are a patient. You don't have a medical defense if you're not a patient. It's about protecting yourself, everyone. That's
absolutely.
Just Tim, just walk us through that. Can I just ask you,
Ross?
Tim, 1 second. Let Ross speak. I feel like you've been biting his tongue for 10 minutes.
I just want you to walk us through that again, what you just said.
Right. So,
because you're very passionate about it, but I need to understand it.
Right. So if you're using, what you said was, look, Ollie, you want to be legal. Now, we all want to be legal. I'm not a criminal. I don't do anything wrong. I never have. The deal is that I believe that everybody should have access to this. The NHS will not. I wrote an article recently that basically, at the moment, it is a medicine for the rich and a crime for the poor. That is intrinsically against everything that the UK stands for. Money should not buy you health. That's why the NHS is there.
That was set up by Aaron Bevan in 1949. Yeah.
There you go. And the very notion that if you use cannabis to alleviate conditions, now I am not advocating for people who get smashed out of their head and kind of just wreck their lives on this. I'm saying, look, come to us, we can help you. I'm saying for people like us who can access medical cannabis because we have the resources to be able to do it, that's great. I have a medical defense. I never, ever drive after I've consumed cannabis. By the way, if you smoke it, Ollie, you are breaking the law. You need to vaporize it.
Yeah, I know. I've got the present you gave me last time I saw you, so I'll be using that. You can also give me more presents if you want. I like presents.
The very one indeed. The very one indeed. But these are important points. I mean, there's a whole range of different vaporizers. They fit everybody differently.
Different conversation for a different day. We're not moving.
Absolutely. These things are important.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, because I've actually got 15 questions here and we haven't answered one. So I want to ask you. I'm going to
do one a minute.
Yeah, let's try. How many patients get refused access?
The CQC require patients to be refused.
Explain.
I can't give you the CQ. So, CQ, the Care Quality Commission. What they've done, they go and register the clinics. They then go and do an assessment of each of the clinics. They require a certain amount of patients to be refused. I don't know what value that is. They may have changed their condition, but if everybody gets passed through, they don't like that because they think that is building a recreational. It's a backdoor to recreational.
So how many people get like say of how many people who go through? How many people actually get through?
How can the
majority, because most of them are screened. You don't go forward for the process unless you've got the medical records that back it up. So most people go through. Now, again, coming back to that doctor, that GP in 2010 who put on your form, cannabis abuse, substance abuse, that can count against you. How do you counter those arguments? Well, you have to build a picture and you have to say, look, this is why I was doing it. Then it was illegal. Now I'm legal if I can get you to authorize me a prescription.
Interesting.
Got it. Question number two.
Question number two. Do you agree with the idea of changing the structure from within? Do you think as patient numbers grow, costs will reduce, quality will increase, and basic consumer economics of supply and demand and economies of scale will come into play?
I absolutely advocate after that, but I go even further that we need a community-based approach. At the minute, we have a stock market-based approach, which is all big cannabis. And what we actually need is community approaches that actually develop localized industry. The high streets are being decimated. We need to get people back to work in areas that are interest and areas where there is going to be economic development. So I think absolutely.
Hang on,
so,
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've got to leap in here because it's a big thing, and I've talked about it on many radio stations and even ours, that the high streets are dead and that business model is finished, and you can't pretend it's 1960, 70, or 80. It's gone and it's not coming back. Are you suggesting then that the cannabis industry could in some way see a resurgence or a little bit of a lifeblood to the high street?
Absolutely. Dispensaries
with shops. Okay.
From my perspective, what would actually let me ask you, Russ. Russ, what would you rather have downstairs from you? An Apple style store. Okay, so a shop which looks like an Apple store, which sells cannabis, which is open from 9 to 5 or 9 till 7, and it closes. And basically, you can't really go in there unless you're a member anyway. So there are no queues and there's none of that.
Well, hang on, is it a club or is it a store? It's a store.
It's just a store. It's a store where you can go in.
Don't need a membership.
Apple shop. Look, it looks like an Apple store or a bar. What would you rather have below you, as a non-cannabis consuming or a bar? Because those are or a gambling shop. Because they're the only.
I don't want a gambling shop. I'm totally against all
the only things which survive on the high street. 4 things. You have Tesco. Okay, which survive supermarkets.
That's not on the high street.
Bars.
It's not
of course it is. It's like Tesco Express.
Not on the high street. No, I'd argue about it. It doesn't matter. I don't want to get into how many fairies can dance on the head of a pin.
There is a Tesco, there is an Iceland, there is an M&S. There are then 5 betting shops. There are 5 hair salons.
Yeah, 15 questions.
Fine,
15
you're right.
questions.
Fine.
Yes.
So,
Go back to
with
your
the
guest.
changing
Come on, never
nature
mind
of the
about me.
global, fine, with the changing nature of the global cannabis market and many countries opening their doors to medicalization or even legalization, how do you reckon supply chains to the UK are going to be affected in coming years? So, like the Germany conversation, this is what I really wanted to get into, because there's also like. There's no supply chain in the UK. All of our cannabis in the UK comes from foreign countries. As we've seen with Brexit and a few other things, we've already seen the epileptic mothers struggling to get cannabis-based medications for their kids. And now you've got, like say in Amsterdam right now, in Holland, they have this rule that most of the cannabis which is produced in Holland needs to go to Dutch patients, and the same in most other countries. With Germany now being the number one supplier of medical cannabis to the UK, I think they're the number one supplier of it. And then new legalization plans. Do you reckon it's going to screw up our market in the UK?
Right. The reason Germany is because of EU GMP regulations, which means you grow cannabis in concrete and steel bunkers, which means you up the carbon footprint. We were talking about sustainability before. We also need to talk about corporate social responsibility. How do you empower people? So you've got a new generation of cannabis companies operating in Africa where natural environments can happen. The change in Germany will be based around GACP, Good Agricultural Collection Policy. That is a lower standard, which means it doesn't need to be in a concrete and steel bunker, which means you basically open it up so that you alleviate some of the things that are going on. The whole market is going to change. There will be UK grown cannabis inside of the market, depending upon EU GMP certification, which is a regulation you need. You can't just grow a cannabis plant and put it into the medical market.
Wait,
that's what
you're about to say something, Tim. Within how much time?
Oh, by the end of next year.
Really? Do you actually think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are places that are already in position to do this. They have their licensing. It's the EU GMP segment of the licensing that is required. That's expensive. £5 million off the bat. They changed the regulatory footprint of it.
Yeah, explain this.
This is really important. Medical cannabis patients think it is a piece of cake to get into the industry. Medical cannabis, very few companies are making any profit whatsoever. The clinicians make the money at the moment. Everybody else is looking at developing the process and moving forward. EU GMP certification in the UK requires an initial investment of £5 million and you've got to invest that before you can get the license. So those licenses are not guaranteed. Then you need 3 crops to prove the process within the variant of the cannabis. So let's assume you're growing Blue Dream, which is a strain really good for pain, back pain, Russ. These are things that are really important. You're allowed 10% variation of the cannabinoid content of the registered product. So if you grow it this month and you grow it next month, you're only allowed 10% variation of the cannabinoid ratio.
That's saying that you have to grow tomatoes, which weigh 165 grams, and they can either weigh 150 or they can weigh 190. They can't weigh 145 and they can't weigh 192 if they do. They're illegal.
No, I get it.
It's also about they've got to be this red color, and any variation of that red color is off the market. You have to.
It's mental, and it's a natural organic compound. There's never any replication in that unless it's GMO, and if it's GMO, it's not going to be good for us. So,
next question.
Okay, next question. Fine. So, you just mentioned that there is going to be UK companies coming out and producing over the next 6 months. Now, I actually spoke to one of our guests. He was on the show, Ed McDermott from EMAC. Okay, and he basically was talking about how there's not going to be any UK supply chain. It costs too much to grow in the UK, and then he was like, it's just not going to happen, and it's never going to happen. I was looking at there's a company out there called Equinox. I don't know if you've heard of Equinox. They've got a lot of government officials who have backed them, like the Queen's MP and whatever have backed them. But there's a lot of belief that unfortunately they might not be able to do what they say they're going to do just because the price of what they're going to produce won't be accessible for the marketplace.
Then this is a very valuable and interesting discussion. the unit cost of a gram of cannabis. So currently on the Canadian stock market, you can buy on the wholesale market a gram of cannabis for $1, maybe 90 cents. So it is cheap. Okay. From South Africa, from Africa, where you've got unlimited space to grow.
Russ, that works out, by the way, about 20% of market value in the UK. Just to let you know.
But that's inside of Canada. You've got to get it here. How much have you got to pay to get it here?
You got to transport it.
But you can't transport it in anything. This is a very secure environment where everything is controlled and everything is moved forward. There's a whole kind of supply chain issues with all these kind of things. And because cannabis is still a controversial area, you just can't go to DHL. Some of the other couriers do take it. Some of them don't. And some of them in mid-flight say, no, we're not doing it anymore. Now, the kind of banking act in the USA will change a lot of this, but the USA will legalize cannabis federally. I would imagine within Biden's time frame, it might be just after, but it will definitely move forward and legalize access to cannabis across the board. Which changes everything because the money supply is controlled from the USA. As much as we like to say the City of London is the stock exchange of the world, they control the regulation.
It's exactly what Russ says every single week. You know, when America sneezes, England catches a cold. It's his go-to comment. I love it. I actually throw it into my general conversations now on a weekly basis. It's kind of fun. But,
well, they've already moved to cannabis, so hopefully it'll come across here eventually. Let's see.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Russ, what do you have to say based on what Tim's...
I find it absolutely fascinating, but you know what Tim is saying is really what I've kind of gathered over the past 57 weeks is that when they can see this is going to be a great source of money, and I'm sorry to bang on about this, but I honestly think, you know, if you want to know anything, just follow the money. It's a hackneyed phrase, but true. Once governments can see, you know what, this is a fantastic source of taxation. We're not going to have people zombified wandering around stoned off their faces. We can regulate it, and as cigarette sales drop, you know, we can do this. And the idea of regenerating, I hadn't even thought of this actually, of regenerating high streets with these controlled, call them cafes, call them dispensaries, I don't know, call them whatever you want to do, you know, laundrettes. I don't care. They will say, well, this makes sense because the Treasury will love it.
Okay, by the way, if I ever open a dispensary, my mouth to God's ears, based on you, I'm going to call it the laundrette. I'm going to call it Ollie's Laundrette. Okay, if I ever open a dispensary, that's what I'm going to call it. Just to throw it out there. Why? Because it was going to look great. I'm going to get like a prime position on Oxford Street and I'm going to call it the laundrette. And you have to push a button on a laundry machine. It's going to open and you're going to walk through to my dispensary. Speakeasy style. Just for you, Russ.
Mad.
All my money I've just spent on your words. There we go.
There we go. Oh, God, another thing I'm going to be responsible for.
Russ,
Tim, you've been an amazing... I just want to say, Tim, you've been a fantastic guest. Your energy and your passion is marvellous.
I just want to say one thing. I work with a group of people. We're trying to get. I work with Gary Youds, and he has been convicted for running the chilling rooms in Liverpool, which was a cannabis speakeasy. Now, with medical cannabis, you can have consumption zones, just like diabetics are able to inject insulin where they need to. You can have consumption zones. So it is dancing on the head of the pin, as you said, Russ. It is that. But by utilizing that, we can actually demonstrate proof of concept. And this is where you can open up all of these kind of areas. The fact that we need to push on the envelope of the regulation, we need to actually start demanding access, in my opinion. Yeah. Europe is moving ahead. Luxembourg has allowed people, as Spain have, to grow their own plants.
Italy, they've turned around and said that, like they've turned around and said, we want you to grow your own cannabis. Do not buy it on the streets. Do not contribute to crime. Grow your own cannabis. But if you're seen selling it, you're going to go to jail for a very long time. They're trying to encourage an empowerment of the population. People like Philip Anthony Bevington would have never got in trouble if he was living in Italy today.
If he was Tony Bevintoni.
Yeah. Not bad, actually.
This is all right.
That wasn't bad at all.
It's really interesting. If you can bring enough of these perfect storms together, Tim, then it starts to work. In other words, if you can see if you see it as a medical advantage, if you see it as a proper revenue stream, if you see it as reducing crime so that we don't have all this stuff, that it can be regulated, that's got to be a plus. Tim, you've been the most terrific guest.
Tim, there's 30 seconds left, so you've got 15 seconds before Russ closes.
Right. Go on holiday, go and use cannabis. It is not a demon drug. You won't turn psychotic. You won't turn schizophrenic. You will have an experience that will last you a lifetime. And you will then say, what was all this fuss about?
Done. Russ, close it.
Well, I'm not even going to do a rebuttal to that because I haven't got time. Well, I just say go on holiday and have fun, get a suntan or not.
Merry Christmas.
Tim Henley, you've been absolutely terrific. Ollie Mammon, thank you for being so open with us and everything like that. We will be back, as I always say, God willing, same time next week, 6 o'clock next Thursday. Until then, try and stay out of trouble, please.